Even light disappeared within the dark, empty realm. This world was monotonous and lonely. At the same time, it was plagued with much danger. There would occasionally be some surging, chaotic spatial flow that could forcefully shatter an expert dozun. Hence, other than the ancient void dragons, which specialized in spatial strength, seldom would any humans or experts from other races enter the empty realm. Of course, this kind of place might be completely remote and deserted to others, but it was quite beneficial for the ancient void dragon tribe. The chaotic spatial flow in this place was not only able to train their control over spatial strength, but they were also able to use the tearing force of the chaotic flow to train their extremely strong physical bodies. Some light suddenly appeared from within the nothingness. If one were to look in the direction of the light, one would see an extremely huge island suspended in the emptiness.
Bang bang.
Extremely intense energy explosions continued to be emitted from that enormous island. Wave after wave of wild and violent energy attacks began to sweep in all directions from the island like a storm. Everything within 100,000 feet from that island was completely destroyed. There were quite a number of people waiting gravely in the empty space around the island. Sharp eyes swept around the island. Anyone attempting to charge out of the island would be violently smashed down by the storm-like attacks. These troops had formed an airtight dragnet which completely surrounded the island. 20 people were lingering at a certain spot above the island. Their eyes continued to sweep over this group at the middle. A cold and stern-looking strong man was sitting down in the middle of the group. The aura of this person was quite strong. He was even a little stronger than Qing. He was an expert who had reached the 9th change peak of the Dozun class. Swoosh! This large man stared intently at the island below. Suddenly, his ears slightly moved as his eyes swung around the empty space in the distance. His body suddenly stood up as he let out a deep cry. "Be careful! Someone is approaching!" A cluster of light suddenly flashed and appeared from deep within the darkness after his last words sounded. It appeared a short distance from the group within a couple of flashes. Qing, they are from the Eastern Dragon Island.
Attack.
The eyes of the large man were extremely sharp. He managed to identify Qing from within the cluster of lights with a glance. His expression sank as he cried out in a cold voice. Understood. The many human figures cried out in an orderly fashion after hearing his shout. Many powerful energy light pillars shot out. Their combined attack gave them an extremely powerful momentum. Bang! However, a faint voice was emitted while these light pillars approached the cluster of lights. Everyone was horrified to watch those many light pillars explode with a bang. Soon after, a frightening strength that could not be resisted surged out of the empty space and violently struck their bodies. Grug. This attack was undoubtedly an exterminating force for the warriors from these 3 great dragon islands. The armors on those many warriors was shattered into dust. Other than the big man, who had reached the 9th change peak of the Dozun class, the remaining people fell to the dragon island below. Bastard! Who exactly are you? The large man's eyes were shocked as he saw their defenses crumbling in the blink of an eye. He quickly let out a low roar. The flowing lights slowly disappeared a short distance in front of the large man. Xiao stepped out from within a light. His eyes did not pause on the large man in front of him. Instead, they swept over the dragon island below. At this moment, the Eastern Dragon Island was filled with holes. Extremely intense battles erupted all over the place. A wild and violent energy caused the entire island to become much dimmer. Although the Dragon Island was in a complete chaos, Xiao could see that the defensive line of the Eastern Dragon Island had shrunk from the outer region to the central Dragon Hall. That location was the middle of the Eastern Dragon Island. In other words, other than the territory around the Dragon Hall, almost 2/3 of the Eastern Dragon Island had been captured by the 3 great Dragon Islands. This situation was quite bad. Where is Ziyin? Xiao Yan's eyes swept around him, but he did not discover a hint of Ziyin. He frowned and had just posed a question when an extremely frightening energy ripple was suddenly transmitted over. Xiao Yan's expression was slightly altered upon sensing this energy fluctuation. He lifted his head and looked for the source of this energy fluctuation. He found a bright sun-like light suspended at that spot. It was possible to vaguely see a couple of figures exchanging blows with lightning-like speed. After each exchange, waves of terrifying energy storm would sweep apart. If they weren't some distance from the Dragon Island, these remnant waves would have completely destroyed the eastern Dragon Island. Xiao Yan's eyes stared intently at the circle of light. A flame slowly surged into both of his eyes, allowing his gaze to penetrate through the light and capture everything inside. A somewhat familiar back with long purple hair that emitted a faint enchantment was the first to be imprinted into his sight. Who else could that familiar demeanor belong to other than Ziyin? However, her current appearance was no longer that of a little girl. Instead, she had become a great beauty. Her tall figure was wrapped within a dark golden form-fitting armor. The armor was not bulky. It pressed against her exquisite and well-proportioned body, outlining her beautiful and sexy curves. The faint temptation hid a bone-piercing chill. The little girl from back then had become such an alluring and bewitching lady. That exquisite face contained an additional cold aura because her eyebrows had been lifted slightly. Although she was still young, it was possible to see a faint aura of authority between her thin eyebrows. Once she fully matured, her demeanor of royalty as the Dragon Emperor of the ancient Void Dragon tribe would frighten anyone looking at her. On the opposite side of Ziyin stood three figures. The three of them possessed middle-aged appearance. Each and every action they made was domineering, revealing their fierce and overbearing nature. Those are the three great dragon kings, huh? Xiao Yan's eyes locked onto the three figures. A grave expression flashed across his eyes. He could sense that those three possessed a strength that surpassed Yao Ming. In other words, those three fellows were, at the very least, 3-star Doushangs. Ziyin was holding a long dark golden spear that was taller than her body as she stood within the light sphere. The spear danced and emitted a glaring golden glitter. It had managed to prevent the three great dragon kings from gaining an advantage. Her fighting strength was completely unleashed. It seemed that her dragon phoenix constitution caused her strength to soar. Compared to Xiao Yan, it was likely that she could truly be described as having reached the peak in a single stride. Moreover, this peak was even higher than Xiao Yan. The Dragon Phoenix possessed the bloodline strength of the ancient Void Dragon and the Heaven Phoenix. It was the true ruler of the magical beast world. When a Dragon Phoenix truly reached the peak, this monstrous existence would not need to feel fear even when facing a legendary Do Di. However, that was in the future. It had only been a short period of time since Ziyin had become Dragon Phoenix. Although her strength had soared during these few years, she still wasn't strong enough to face these three great dragon kings, who were a lot more experienced than her. It was obvious that this stubborn resistance could not last for long. Roar! While Xiao Yan had become absent-minded because of the battle in the distance, the large man from earlier suddenly emitted a dragon roar. You are seeking death. Xiao Yan's eyes turned cold after being awoken by the dragon roar. He threw a palm forward. That large man, whose body was rapidly pulling back, erupted into a cluster of bloody fog. This fellow was sending a message. Many three great Dragon Island experts are hurrying over. Elder Julie spoke in a deep voice. Let's head to the Dragon Hall first. Xiao Yan's eyes flickered. He did indeed see many figures rushing in this direction. Without hesitating, he moved his body and led the way to the Dragon Hall. Yao Ming and the others hurriedly followed behind him. Block them. The Dragon Island emitted many loud cries while Xiao Yan's group moved. There were many three great Dragon Island experts in front that were attempting to block Xiao Yan's group. Humph! Xiao Yan merely smiled as this obstruction formed. The dou qi within his body circulated to the limit. He widened his mouth and a sea of flames was spat out. Their frighteningly high temperature caused the expressions of some of the elite band Shang to change. With Xiao Yan's current strength, the strength of his heavenly flame was many times stronger than in the past. A sea of flames had spread by just widening his mouth. If this was in the past, he would have difficulty creating such a great force even if he had drained all of the dou qi within his body. Xiao Yan waved his hand as the sea of flames blocked the attacks. A fire barrier surrounded his group before they swiftly charged through the sea of flames. They had appeared in the air above the Dragon Hall within a couple of flashes. "Where have you bastards come from? You dare to intervene in the plans of our three great Dragon Islands?" A thunder-like explosive cry sounded the moment Xiao Yan appeared above the Dragon Hall. Immediately, a large black-faced man with a giant ape-like body appeared. He had a ferocious expression as he threw a punch toward Xiao Yan. The frightening strength caused the air within 1,000 feet completely vanish in an instant. "Xiao Yan, be careful. He is the first commander of the Western Dragon Island, Xianmo. He has the strength of a 2-star Dosheng." Zhu Li's expression slightly changed upon seeing that large black-faced man. He hurriedly cried out in the process. Xiao Yan waved his sleeve. A gentle force delivered everyone to the Dragon Hall below before he turned his body. His body suddenly swelled and turned into a golden giant that was not inferior to the other party in the blink of an eye. After which, he threw a punch and collided head-on with Xianmo in front of many shocked pairs of eyes. "Get lost." Xiao Yan's furious thunder-like roar of Xiao suddenly exploded over the sky the moment the clash occurred. Clang! Two strong demon godlike figures suddenly clashed in the sky. A sudden metallic sound was accompanied by a frightening storm as it suddenly swept across the sky. The experts from both parties within 1,000-foot radius were sent flying by the storm. The blood within their bodies violently flowed in the process. The wind erupted and that golden light giant, which Xiao Yan had transformed into, trembled slightly. He took a step back. That large man named Xianmo on the other side staggered a couple of steps back. Each of his steps collapsed into many dark empty spaces. "Brat, you do have some ability." Surprise flashed across Xianmo's face after he failing to gain an advantage in this collision. His eyes were a little grave as he looked at Xiao Yan, who was a short distance away, and coldly smiled. Xiao Yan's eyes swept over Xianmo. His brows were also slightly knit. The strength of the three great Dragon Islands was indeed powerful. Their subordinates also included such a powerful expert. If Xiao Yan had not relied on the King Kong glass body, his strong body that had been refined by many natural treasures, and the Heaven Phoenix essence blood, he would not have been able to gain the upper hand in the physical clash earlier. "Brat, who exactly are you? Tell me your name. The matters of my ancient Void Dragon tribe are not something an ordinary person can interfere with." Xianmo looked at Xiao Yan as he cried out in a cold voice. Xiao Yan completely ignored Xianmo's cold cry. His eyes swept to the northwest. Two figures were hurrying over from the distance with lightning-like speed. They appeared beside Xianmo within a couple of flashes. At the same time, an icy cold voice was quickly emitted. "Xianmo, why are you still wasting your breath? Just attack and capture him. The three great Dragon Kings will likely be victorious soon. Nothing must go wrong before this." The two who had appeared in front of Xianmo was an old man in a green robe and an old man in yellow robe. These two appeared extremely old, but their eyes possessed a surging chill. Clearly, they were not merciful people. Xiao Yan's eyes were grave as he studied these two old men. His eyelids involuntarily began to twitch. Based on his senses, he could tell that these two were a little stronger than Xian and Mo. They were at the top of the intermediate 2-star Doshang class. Himph, are the three of you trying to bully our eastern Xian region because you think that we have no one? A furious cry was suddenly emitted from the Dragon Hall soon after the two old men appeared. Xiao Yin sensed the space around him fluctuate as two white-haired old men with unusually sharp eyes appeared. Xiao Yin, this is the first and second elders of our eastern Dragon Island. Zhu Li hurriedly came over and explained to Xiao Yin who these two white-haired old men were. Greetings to two elders. Xiao Yin grinned upon hearing this explanation. He cupped his hands together as he faced the two smiling old men. Little friend Xiao Yin need not be so polite. You are a friend of the Dragon Emperor. Naturally, you are an important guest of our Eastern Dragon Island. You have really helped us this time around. My Eastern Dragon Island will remember this favor. A white-haired old man holding a dragon-shaped walking stick glanced at Xiao Yin as a smile slowly surfaced on his face. His voice was also quite courteous. That green-robed man is the first elder of the Western Dragon Island. He is called Zhu Mu and is an intermediate 2-star Doshang. That yellow-robed old man is the first elder of the Southern Dragon Island. He is called Lai Shan and possesses a similar strength as Zhu Mu. Zhu Li softly informed Xiao Yin. These two people, along with Xian and Mo, can be considered the highest-ranking commanders of the three great dragon islands other than the three great dragon kings. The three of them are in charge of the offensive against the Eastern Dragon Island. Xiao Yin slightly nodded. His heart was a little shaken. 3 2-star Doshangs was a lineup that an ordinary faction could not take out. The ancient Void Dragon tribe was indeed worthy of being the strongest tribe in the magical beast world. Moreover, this was a situation where they had separated. If they ended up unifying, they would not be inferior to the Hun clan, the Gu clan, or the other super factions. Old Man Qing Shan, are all of you going to continue this stubborn resistance after things have developed to this stage? You should be aware that by continuing to resist, the strength of the Eastern Dragon Island will be completely exhausted. That green-robed first elder from the Western Dragon Island looked at the old man holding a walking stick and coldly laughed. My Eastern Dragon Island will not allow you traitors who have forgotten the rules of the tribe to continue on, even if we have to exhaust our last man. The Eastern Dragon Island's first elder, who was addressed as Qing Shan, rolled his eyes and spoke in a faint voice. I will see just whether your tongue will remain this tough after the 3 Dragon Kings finish off your Dragon Emperor. The first elder Zhu Mu from the Western Dragon Island laughed and said, If we count the time, the reinforcements sent by the Heaven Demon Phoenix tribe will likely be arriving soon. At that time, the old me shall see just how you are going to resist. Shameless fellow. The ancient Void Dragon and the Heaven Demon Phoenix tribe are enemies. You have even forgotten such a hatred. You are unworthy of being a tribal member of the ancient Void Dragon tribe. Back then, the Dragon Emperor had spent effort grooming all of you. Your consciousness has all been eaten by dogs. The second elder from the Eastern Dragon Island grit his teeth and furiously cursed. The expressions of Shin Mo's group became slightly unnatural after hearing the second elder mention the Dragon Emperor. They finally replied a moment later, The Dragon Emperor has been missing for thousands of years. It is likely that he is no longer in this world. As for the Heaven Demon Phoenix tribe, we will finish them off once we unify. The ancient Void Dragon tribe has been separated for too long. It must be united as soon as possible, yet all of you are blocking the unification. What gibberish! The Dragon Emperor is the one who possesses the true royal bloodline. The 3 great Dragon Kings are partially related if that, yet you dare to proclaim the unification of the ancient Void Dragon tribe? It was because of their selfish desires that they separated the ancient Dragon clan back then. First Elder Qing Mu chided. Xiao Yin by the side gained an understanding of the situation after hearing this exchange between the two sides. All of the members of the ancient Void Dragon tribe wanted unification, but all of them had different ideas. Hence, this had eventually resulted in the eruption of this big war. You need not wait for the members of the Heaven Demon Phoenix tribe. I coincidentally met them along the way and sent them packing. Xiao did not wish to understand the differences in opinion within the ancient dragon tribe. The only thing that he understood was that he had an extremely deep relationship with Ziyin. On the other hand, he did not have a good impression of the three great dragon kings. He would naturally choose Ziyin. He grabbed the area below with his hand. A human figure appeared in it. It was the Heaven Demon Phoenix tribe's Qinhuang.
What?
Both parties were startled upon hearing Xiao words. They hurriedly shifted their eyes and caught sight of Qinhuang, who was in a sealed state. "You bastard! How dare you ruin the plans of our three great islands?" Xiao stared at Xiao as he furiously cried out. "You two, why are you still wasting your breath with him? Attack and flatten this dragon hall." The western and southern dragon islands' first elders nodded slowly upon hearing this order. Their mouths emitted a dragon roar. Soon after, hundreds of lights came rushing over from a short distance away. They stopped in the air above the dragon hall. The 10 people leading this group possessed an extremely frightening aura. They had all reached the Bansheng class. The remaining people were mostly above 5th star of the Dozun class. Roar! Many dragon roars were emitted from the dragon hall below after seeing the experts from the three great dragon islands gather together. Immediately, the rushing sound of wind appeared. Many figures appeared behind Xiao in an orderly fashion. Their eyes ruthlessly looked at the large group of people in the distance. The dou-qi within their bodies began to rapidly circulate. The atmosphere of the entire area became extremely tense as the experts from both parties stepped forward. Bang! A loud and clear energy explosion was suddenly emitted in the distant space while both parties were facing each other. This sudden explosion also shattered the face-off. Many powerful auras began to charge into the sky. Charge! The experts from both parties seemed to have become ferocious tigers that had descended the mountains with low and deep roars. All of them rushed forward. In an instant, the entire place turned into a complete chaos. An intense chaotic battle erupted.
Bang bang bang.
The battle that erupted caused one to feel dazzled. Although the number of experts from the three great dragon islands was much greater than the Eastern Dragon Island, it was clearly not easy to swiftly swallow the fighting strength of the Eastern Dragon Island. Hence, the battle descended into a seesaw-like stalemate after the battle erupted.
Bang!
Xiao palm struck an expert who had reached the peak of the Dozun class, forcing the expert to spit out blood and retreat. His body quickly moved as he appeared beside the expert Dozun, after which he grabbed the Dozun's hand and used him as a weapon in front of many shocked eyes. He violently smashed this peak Dozun into an elite Bansheng. The frightening force caused the arm of this peak Dozun class expert to explode. At the same time, the expert struck the elite Bansheng until the Bansheng spat out blood and flew backwards. Xiao suddenly lifted his head after sending that Bansheng flying. His eyes looked to the empty space in the distance. The battleground there was the most important one. Its end result would determine the outcome of this ancient dragon tribe's war and would decide the final victor. However, the situation in that light cluster caused Xiao heart to sink. Ziyin was tiring. She was being pushed back by the combined attacks of the three dragon kings. 2 elders, Tribal Chief Yao Ming will help the both of you deal with Xiao and the other 2. I will help Ziyin. Xiao eyes suddenly became sharp as he exhaled a deep breath of air. His mouth emitted a stern howl. A pair of huge green-red bone wings spread apart. Block him. Xiao, and the other two first elders were immediately startled upon seeing Xiao Yin move. Before they could give chase, Yao Ming and the first and second elders from the eastern Dragon Island hurried over and blocked them. Xiao Yan's bone wings were flapped the moment this clash occurred. A wind lightning sound appeared. His body rushed out of the eastern Dragon Island with lightning-like speed as he hurried towards the battleground in the empty space. Three great dragon kings. I wish to see just how frightening all of you are.